Hi guys, it's Flip Flop Mountaineer. I'm coming to you from my homestead tonight here in Tennessee. I just wanted to take a minute. I'm out on a walk, walking the property, and thought I would answer some questions that we've been asked about how we left everything we knew behind and moved to Tennessee, and why we left, some of the pros, the cons. And if you stick around to the end, I'll give you the #1 reason why we left Florida to move to Tennessee. But let me just get started here by telling you that I was born and raised in Florida. I'm a native Floridian, and Florida was all I knew. And my husband, pretty much, he spent his whole life there. He was born in another country, but his dad was military, so that's why he was born in another country. So he's an American citizen, but he basically spent his whole life and childhood in Florida as well. My mom was his English teacher. So anyway, getting back to the story, we decided that we would take a look at where we were in life and look at the expenses, and the cost of living, honestly, in Florida was just going up at an exponential rate that was increasing beyond what our salaries were increasing. So, for example, we had to, in Florida, have wind insurance, homeowners insurance, and flood insurance. Those were kind of the three things. And in Florida, the wind is separate on the policy, and it's a very expensive premium through like a state program. So we discovered that when we moved here, that our homeowners, specifically insurance, and I'm not talking, we're not required to carry flood, and the wind is built into our policy in Tennessee, so it's a little bit different. But just if you were looking at those two things, just those two things, our premium to cover our home is probably about 1/3, maybe a little bit less than what we were paying in Florida. So we have a big savings there, and we're not getting any younger. So saving that on that, our car insurance, just to give you an idea, we did have to switch actually both vehicles. I think we did have to switch, yeah, when we moved up here. So I can't tell you vehicle per vehicle, but I mean, pretty much, you know, it's pretty similar because the ages of the vehicles are pretty similar to what we had when we moved from Florida. One's a newer vehicle, one's an older vehicle. And our premium here went down by about 3/4. That's a lot of money. So our auto premiums were down to paying about 1/4 of what we paid in Florida for the same type of coverage. And I say type because it's a different state, so there are different, you know, laws here, and we don't have the personal injury protection like they had in Florida here in Tennessee. So I mean, some of the coverages are a little bit different, but basically the same limits, you know. So a lot of saving there. Probably the third thing would be the utilities, you know, and we've had people ask us, well, what are your utilities there compared to what you paid in Florida? Well, we're not off grid here. We do have power, but our power is hydro. We are on hydroelectric, which means that it's a water run power source. So we have a dam that's up off the Ocoee River and also off the Hiwassee River that kind of controls our power grid. So it's hydroelectric, and we pay probably, just going back and just kind of thinking in my head some of the bills that we had in Florida, we're probably paying 1/4, maybe a little bit more less than we were paying for our electric in Florida. And then, of course, in Florida, we had public utilities like water and sewer. And here we are on well and septic. So other than our maintenance of those systems, which are on our property, we don't have a bill for water, and we don't have a bill for the septic system. We do have to have it pumped and maintained. You know, obviously there's expense to that, but you know, if you compare it dollar for dollar, it's less. So those are probably some of the main reasons. And like I said, if you stick around to the end, I'll tell you the #1 reason why we're here. Now the one con that we have learned, and you know, the Lord has taken care of us, but the one con that we've learned is the job market here is quite different than it was where we came from. My husband, he makes probably about $10 less an hour, but as you heard, our living expenses are significantly less than what they were in Florida. So at this point in time, he's making less. He's been trying to get onto a specific company for about 2 years, and just this week had an interview with that company. He's been trying for about 2 years to get in, and as we've learned, you kind of have to know somebody on the inside to get into this particular company, which now we do. We go to a church, and there's somebody at our church that works there. And just to give you also an idea of what the job market is here, my husband told me that they shared this in the interview, that there were 259 applicants and only 12 openings. So I guess that could be a con, if you're not coming here with a job already lined up or a remote position. I was fortunate to have a part-time remote position when we moved here, which kind of carried us through. That's coming to an end for me, so I'm having to kind of face, what am I going to do next job-wise? So that would be a con. The other thing that could be a con, it's not a con for us. We are rural, so we do have to drive into town, for groceries and different things. And the nearest grocery store is 25 minutes, which is not terrible. But if you wanted to go to like your main stores, like your Aldi's, Walmart's, department stores, things like that, it's probably about a 45-minute drive. But in Florida, to go about 15 miles, it was getting to a point where it was taking us 45 minutes to an hour to go 15 miles. They did not have the infrastructure in Sarasota and Manatee County to support the growth. So even though we are having to drive to get groceries and different things, it's about the same as what we were doing when we came from Florida. So it could be a con for somebody, but for us it wasn't. And now, I'm sure you've been waiting. The number one reason why we're here is, as you guys know in a prior video, we went to a family reunion in Georgia, met a stranger on the Tennessee side when we took a day trip, and he showed us around here, so that kind of steered us a little bit on this region. But there was also a drawing, by the Lord to this particular region. So the number one reason, I guess, that we're here is the Lord was really calling us here. So we felt called to this particular location. And I think that's why there's been a grace to see it through. The other thing I do love, which I didn't mention about living here that I didn't have in Florida, I'm able to grow my own vegetables. I'm able to have chickens and have fresh eggs. And I'm doing that for the first time. I'm learning. It's nothing that I've ever done before. So there is something to be said when you can actually become somewhat self-sufficient. We're not completely, obviously we're not off-grid, but we are trying to learn to produce our own food, some of it, and to kind of live off what the Lord provides here on the land. So that has been fun, and there's a big learning curve. I'm not perfect at it yet, and you'll probably see me on some other episodes where I'm asking questions. Hey y'all, do you know how to help me with this? Because I just have no clue, because I'm a flip-flop mountaineer, not from here. So anyway, I just appreciate you guys sticking with me, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer them. I may not get to them right away, but that's just because of where we live. Because if I'm out and about, I don't have service. So just be patient with me on that, but please like and subscribe if you like the content. We'll be coming back with more content, and if you look on my channel, you'll see videos where I'm taking you exploring. So I will be exploring North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee, because we are kind of on that border. We're on the Tennessee part ourselves, but we are right on the border with North Carolina and Georgia. So please like and subscribe, and I will be seeing you soon, y'all.